Spiritual awakening is a natural process. And because it is natural, there are signs that can tell you what season your soul is in. Take this guided journey with me now as we explore each of the seasons of your soul as a metaphor for natural spiritual awakening. In the autumn of your self-realization journey, in your awakening to the deepest, truest self, you are shedding the leaves. It is a process of questioning. And with every question your heart asks at the deepest level, you begin a quest, hence question. And the quest that you're on in the beginning leaves you feeling quite naked, because all of those comforting beliefs that perhaps you inherited, perhaps you gained in the beginning of your life, you woke up one day and you had all these beliefs about who you are and what life is. You were taught what to believe about some of the most important things in the journey, but through your autumn, you started questioning. And when we are in a soul's autumn, we question, we shake the tree, and it can feel like we are losing or letting go of perceptions, even identities. The question, who am I, often arises in some form. Or what is my purpose? And the reason we question is because it is a natural time to question. Your soul has played the game. It has immersed itself in the songs of life, in the songs of becoming this and then that, showing up in all these various expressions. And with time, your soul begins to accumulate wisdom, as if the out-breath of life has now become an in-breath, and there is a calling home. And the first stage in this return home, in this remembering, is a kind of autumn, where there must be questioning that shakes the leaves, that shakes the perceptions and the identities, and leaves one feeling quite stark. All of the mask, all of the identity that felt like what we showed the world about who we are, now seems either transparent or less or gone. And this is often when we feel alone. We look around and realize not everyone else is shaking their trees. Not everyone else is questioning identity and purpose and meaning. Instead, they are accumulating. And here we are looking at and letting go, looking at and letting go, looking at and being unsure, unwilling to hold on to something unless it deeply satisfies us. And there can be this feeling of searching, is this it? Is this it? And maybe even for a moment thinking, oh, this feels like it. I feel like I found it. Only to then a little bit later, well, it wasn't quite it. And then the disappointment. And then the hunger for truth once again arises. You know that feeling? And sometimes the hunger is a whisper. And other times the hunger is a burning, a longing, an aching. Such a private, intimate, and sometimes secret suffering. So many endure their autumn quite alone, or they go out into the world to find teachers, teachings, to find answers, to look and see, are there others who are also experiencing this? In many ways, I would say that the earth is being shook. Our reality as a collective is going into an autumn. the structures, the systems that we have relied on, that we have assumed were real, all shook, all being shaken to the core. And yes, it creates turmoil like those autumn winds that blow, and it can feel very unsettling. The autumn of the soul in the path of our awakening, in the journey of our deepest self-realization as a species and as individuals, means knowing that it is natural, knowing that it is a part of the journey, as natural as the trees outside losing their leaves. We breathe, relax, and we let go. What am I willing to question? Trusting the natural cycle that something comes to replace that which was false, or that which was dying, or that which was just time. It's time to let that go. And yes, we are left in the discomfort of, well, then I don't know what's next. But what's next, of course, is winter and spring and summer. So yes, the winter of the soul is the dark night of the soul. It is the contraction that happens when we bump into that which is not true. And there is an important difference between suffering and pain. Pain, being a part of life, is woven into the tapestry of what it means to be human. Suffering, we could say, is our resisting of the pain and the resisting of the suffering. And much of the winters of our suffering come from the natural contraction that happens when we are not seeing true or being true. Your soul is here for a reason. Your soul is a bridge to the deepest, truest seeing and being. Your soul courageously, incredibly, is equal to this called life, this called forgetting. Your soul is that incredible, that amazing, that beautiful. Your soul as an expression of life and love and the divine, moving through the seasons of autumn and winter and its spring and its summer. And your soul, like everything in nature, has a purpose, has a function according to its design. This is something very easy to check. You don't have to believe. If you focus on a thought like, I am not enough, I am not enough, does this produce an expanded openness or a contraction, a heaviness in the mind or the heart or the felt sense of the body? When a thought, when a perception does not reflect the truth, it causes a contracting. When we believe a thought, when we believe a perception that is not ultimately true, the response can be felt and known in our nervous system. We can experience it. And they're like mini winters, aren't they? That moment where we swallowed and took on board a way of seeing or a way of being that wasn't ultimately true. We didn't know that that was what was going on. We just suddenly suffered for it. We suffered for the inherited belief, the opinion that we took. We suffered for an understanding that was not true. And so the winters of contraction are there to remind us, I have found something where flowing water has become ice. I have found something where truth has been overlooked. I have overlooked my true I. I have closed my eyes metaphorically, and the contraction is telling me I am not seeing clearly. I am not being clear. I am not seeing true. I am not being true. And the loss, apparently, the apparent loss of that causes that contracted suffering, that heavy stuckness, the longing, the winter of the soul, which can feel like a long winter, or it can feel like a moment. And the cure for winter, the natural response, if we continue the natural journey, is to melt that ice with true seeing and true being, which of course is the spring. And the spring of the soul is that feeling we have when spring arrives. Suddenly there is life, there is more space from the harshness of winter and the suffering. There is a feeling of, I can now breathe. And when we find wisdom, even the smallest amounts of wisdom, even the smallest aha moments of, I see the deeper truth, I know the deeper me, I see with my true eyes as the true I. And even a moment of that can ease the suffering of winter, can lean into the spring of the soul. And yes, we get mini springs, moments of relief when something has contracted us, but also slowly the bigger cycle is a steady deepening of spring. And that is when the soul has worked hard through the autumn and the winter of its being, shed all the beliefs that weren't true, and now harvesting wisdom, new life, new growth, absorbing the sunlight, absorbing the nutrients available to it, just like the soul becomes porous enough at a certain point in its maturity that it is capable of absorbing wisdom. Up until then, there is not a ripeness, there's not a porous opening, a possibility. So the soul endures as it matures because it is in service to life. It's an act of love to move through these cycles, so that now it has accumulated, it has harvested wisdom from living, from its winters and from its autumns, from its courage to question and its discovering, I see for myself that I am not that which I thought I was. I see for myself. And the spaciousness that starts to be experienced and felt, those cold, harsh edges of the winter melting. And of course, as ice would melt, it would also discover, if it was in an ocean, I am discovering that I might be made of this water that is all the ocean. So that frozen wave, that ice island that feels so separate in the ocean, starts to melt. So spring is often filled with epiphanies and the bliss of the discovery, the highs of the expanded consciousness that we gain access to. And then during the spring, there are moments, just like in the real spring, where it still feels cold again. And when you are in a spring of your soul, you may feel, have I lost it? Because the expansion can revert to a cold, bitter day. And there's this feeling of moving between the ice and the melted, the open and the closed, the feeling of growth and progress, and the feeling of going backwards. But be kind and gentle to yourself. And no matter how exquisite and extraordinary the epiphanies that may or may not come, remember this: all epiphanies, no matter how psychedelic or how grand and mysterious looking and appearing, their purpose is simply to point you to the self. So although we are grateful for the epiphanies, and they are significant and important, and the mystical experiences perhaps or not, and not everyone has mystical experiences, and they are not a requirement for awakening, be clear. More importantly, the real awakening is the awakening of true seeing and true being. It is the absorption of wisdom. It is the harvesting of wisdom so that the soul reflects something deeper and something more true, which is a natural process that cannot be forced, but certainly can be nourished and supported. And then there is the summer, to sing the songs of life and home ultimately in its fullest expression. The summer of our awakening, the summer of the soul, is a maturation point. It's where the soul has absorbed enough wisdom, where the soul has assimilated enough clarity that the ice melts more and more, where the fruit ripens on the tree, so much so that all you need to do is touch the tree and the fruit falls. This is the stage of embodiment. This is the stage of I am that which I was seeking. This is the stage of what I was looking for, I am looking from. This is when the wave that was frozen is so melted and so beginning to soften and to become transparent that it recognizes I am the ocean, and it recognizes, all of this movement from autumn to winter to spring to my soul's summer was a beautiful expression of life, natural, but that all the movement arose in that which never moves, in the silent ground of being that now is ordinary, obvious, and recognized as always true, always present, that the true you, the true self, consciousness, remained throughout the seasons, that the depths of the ocean of being remained, was always present to all of the play on the surface expression. If we stop at any of these seasons and we fight against them, they tend to happen anyway because they are a natural process. And it can be an act of great love and self-care and nurturing and kindness to support the journey of the soul through to its summer, but not to try and leap into summer. If you are experiencing winter, give yourself what you need then. If you are experiencing spring, give yourself what you need then. Sometimes when we're in an autumn of questioning, we see the words of a soul speaking from summer, from the full embodiment. and we take the words, but we have not gained the seeing. And that can set us back. Autumn asks us to question deeply and fiercely. Winter asks us for courage to endure with compassion for our suffering and our contraction. Spring asks us to look deeper than the Epiphanies for what they are pointing to, the awakenings and the understandings, and to realize this is all about coming home to the self, so that we step into the summer of our being, of the soul's maturing, so that now there is a soul expression in life, a song of life reflecting the deepest shared self, reflecting the true being and true seeing, being an ambassador for home, because it is the soul that incarnates. It is the soul that journeys while the self remains.